I'm Ashley, God's Country Archery. I'm going to take a minute and show you how to install a great product that we've been talking about, and this is the new Saunders VUDU. Unlike our other models that came out, we were telling you earlier that this one's fully adjustable, and so instead of having all the brackets, it comes in two sizes, a 5/16 and 3/8 size, which will accommodate almost every bow. And so basically this thing will be cut to length, which I'm going to show you how to do, and it's also adjustable so that you can pull out, adjust this thing, you turn it, it's toothed, and then it's got a set screw on the back that you simply tighten to lock it all down. And this is a high polymer plastic, very, very strong. You're really going to like this product. We cut down on the weight, carbon, took out some more of the vibration, but I'm going to run over and show you how to install this thing real quick. And I've got a 5/16, so I'm going to grab a 3/8. Here's the right size. So I got the 3/8 here. So the first thing that you're going to want to do, we use these a lot in the shop. Keep one of these things around. This is a silver Sharpie. Sometimes they're hard to find. But loosen the set screw, which I've already done here on my E35. This is a 2014 model. And so I loosen the set screw up, and I'll make sure that my string stop is seated all the way into my housing. And then I just want to simply take my Sharpie here, and I'm going to make a silver line right there. And that'll show me how far my string stop rod is seated. And so I can take a quick measurement on that. If I know how to read a tape measure, sometimes I don't. And so I'm looking at 1 inch of depth. So now what I'm going to do is, when you seat your VUDU plunger, you'll notice that it has two little ears. So if you see right here, this ear runs in this side of this track. You can see it move back and forth. And so I want to set that so that ear is 1/3 of the way off the back, about that far. So if that's a full, that's halfway, about 1/3. And what that does is it'll leave a little shock travel on the end when the string hits it. And so I want my plunger in just about this position. And my air compressor decided to cut on. There we go. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take the VUDU, and I'm going to engage the plunger until it's at the seating depth that I was looking for, right in there, just like we talked about. That's in the lower third. And then I'm going to take my Sharpie, and I'm going to make a mark again where my new carbon reaches the face. And so I've done that. I got a mark here where my carbon was touching my face, and I'm simply going to add 1 inch to that, which was the depth that my riser was. So I'm going to add 1 inch here, and let me know where to cut that. Now there's a couple of ways to cut it, and I'll get, Christina, if you'll pause that for a second, we'll go to my aerosol. Alright, so I'm back here on my aerosol. I'll show you how easy this is. It's going to be loud. I got to vacuum and everything to keep the carbon dust down. So, what I did was I trimmed it off. I left it a little bit strong. And then I just took the saw and I just ran the edge of the carbon up against the side of the blade, which just bevels it. Now, if you don't happen to have an aerosol, that's fine. You can use a Dremel with a cutoff wheel. You can use a side cutter wheel. You can use a hacksaw will work fine. Any very small toothed saw will work to cut this. And I'll bring you and show you how to install it now. All right, so installing this thing is pretty easy. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Allen wrench, and I just want to loosen this thing, if I get the right size here. I'm going to loosen this thing about 5 turns. And, you know, just enough so that my plunger clears. There's a friction washer and nut inside. And so this will give me, can't quite turn it yet. It just enough to where you can adjust it. Alright, that's enough to adjust it. I'm going to shove it back into the cone so I got the depth correct. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this inside my riser. And you'll notice sometimes when you put this in, maybe your string stop's going to be sitting a little high where your serving location is. So I notice turn down this direction, I'm at the lower part of mine. I'm going to flip it into the up position to see where I'm sitting. So I'm sitting a little higher, so I'm going to put it down here into this location. It gives me more of my string stop serving area covered. So now here's the part that I do. Get the other vise out of the way. That's a little bit different, but it makes setting up pretty easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the bow where you can kind of see. Let me tell you what, I'm going to turn it straight up like this. And that way you can kind of see the string stop here. All right. Now it's Butch Baker's vise here, guys. If you've never worked on one of these vices, you can go pick this up at Lancaster Archery, or you can go straight to Baker's Archery product site and pick it up. It's a great vise. We use these things all the time. And so what I want to do when I install this is I'm going to take, and I'm just going to get the plunger out of the way first off. I don't really need that in there. I want to get it centered on my stop. So if you look here, my goal is to get this thing centered and lined up inside of the housing. So I'm trying to do it from the back here, but if you look, that is real close to being centered. I'm gonna tighten it down and see what it looks like. I'm a little off when I tighten it down, so I'm gonna take and rotate it just a hair and move my plunger. Now you can see that it runs, I might have run a little bit too stout. It's hard to do at this angle. I'm trying to get it where you guys can see it. There we go. Thanks, Cricket. So it looks like it's centered there. Is it centered your side, Christina? Hard to see from here. But it looks like it's centered. So basically it's running laterally with this little crack here inside of my housing and with the string stop. So now I know that when my string strikes, it's going to hit dead center on that VUDU. Just like that, which is what I'm looking for. Lateral travel. So that looks good. So now all I want to do is I'm going to tighten up the housing. And it's easier to do that with a plunger in it, so I'll go ahead and show you this. So when you get your plunger, it's lubed a little bit, but take the VUDU lube and find one that's not empty. There we go. And just coat this thing down with VUDU lube. And I am not liberal at all when I put this on. I mean, I'll put this stuff, I coat it on there. See, it's nice and slick. Run this back down inside the housing, just like this. Now my string's nice and engaged, and I can tighten up my Allen screw in the back here. I'm all thumbs. I got my bow vise about as tall as I am. And when you want this thing fairly snug, you want that cone to pull back in there, tighten up. The way this thing is made, it's toothed, but it's also cone shaped, so it friction mounts as well. It's plenty tight enough. Looks good. Check my rod again. And everything on it looks real good. Now you can reinstall, like this has a wind saver dampener on it. I could put this back on there. This takes so much out, I don't think there'll be any need in it. So it's that easy to install, and looks good on here. So that's the Saunders VUDU. That's how you do it. It's that easy. Works the same on the 3/8 or the 5/16. All right, guys. So I'm again Ashley, God's Country Archery. You can go on our website, www.godscountryarchery.com. I've got the VUDU right on the home page. Just choose the 5/16 or the 3/8. You can find us on Facebook at godscountryarchery.com. You PM me for questions, and don't forget your freedom strings. Thanks, guys.